And we welcome back in Chris Broussard, our Clippers super fan. Chris Broussard. I'm going to let you marinate in all the joyous hoopla from these two guys before I ask how surprised you were. Give it to him, guys. Go ahead. He's ready to see
head
it.
over heart. How does it work? Young analyst, veteran savvy analyst. Why I don't have a vote? What do you do? Oh my God!
Out of your system.
Let me say this.
Go ahead, Broussard. Go ahead.
I am going to start off by saying something I have never come close to uttering in the 2.5, 3 years, whatever it is that I've been on this show. Nick was right. I never thought I'd say that on this show, but Nick was right. I got to give him his props. And Brandon, too, for picking Denver, saying they were the better team. I still don't totally agree with that, but clearly they look like it right now. So congratulations to you guys. I'll give you that. All right. Look, I'm shocked, obviously. I'm shocked.
Okay.
I thought that the Clippers were the best team in the league, not just the best team in this series, the best team in the league. I thought they had 3 closers, and yesterday those 3 closers combined for 31 points on 26% shooting. I thought they had tough defense, and they obviously had no answers for Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. I thought they had dogs, grit, grime, tenacity, all of that, and they got out-rebounded by a ton. They got beat to seemingly every 50-50 ball. They got out-hustled. And that is the crux of the matter. They lost their identity. Last year, they were the little engine that could. They out-hustled everybody. They were hard-nosed and all that. You drop in 2 stars, and you think, okay, everybody's just going to fit around them. And instead, because the stars weren't there a lot, whether it was missing practices, missing games, and instead, they had no identity. If there was any identity, honestly, it was that they were prima donna. And that is what cost them this series and a legitimate chance to win the championship. As Marcus Morris said a few days ago, they looked at how good they were on paper. They relaxed in that regard. And obviously, by the time they really had to wake up, it was too late, and they're going home.
So all that's obviously correct. Here's a simpler way of saying it. They were a bunch of fraudulent front runners all year. When things were easy, they looked like the best team in basketball. Folks would always, whenever the Clippers went on one of those, they locked down someone on defense for 6 minutes, and Paul George is hitting his patented push-off step-back 3, and Kawhi Leonard is hitting his emotionless 18-footer after emotionless 14-footer. My Twitter mentions just full up, Nick, you scared? Nick, you ready to admit they're the best team in basketball? And the answer all along was no, because you've got to do that, not just for 48 minutes, but for 7 games. And they couldn't be bothered to try. They had this. You don't want to know when I was nervous? I will admit. Down 15 in Game 5 after the Clippers had dominated the series in Games 1 and 4. Games 2 and 3 were pretty damn even. And then they folded. Up 17 were the Clippers late in the midway through the third quarter of Game 6. And the Nuggets punched back once, and the Clippers folded. Last night, up 7, biggest game of the year by a country mile. The Nuggets go on a quick little 8-0 run, and the Clippers folded. Doc wears this, way off P wears this forever because it's long in a line. And Kawhi, listen, folks, we have seen in the last 20 years 3 championship caliber teams blow 3-1 leads. And the superstars for all of those have worn it. But the other 2 lost wilds to other championship caliber teams. The KD and the Thunder blew a 3-1 lead. But at least they did it to the Warriors, who had won a title. The Warriors and Steph blew a 3-1 lead. But at least they did it to the greatest player of all time. These guys blew a 3-1 lead with big leads in the second half of all 3 of the closeout games to a team with 0 combined finals appearances. Paul Millsap's the only dude in the rotation who's even been to a conference finals. Nikola Jokic came on that court playing basketball like he's wearing flip-flops, standing on hot coals, and made Kawhi Leonard look like a second-tier player. That happened. Kawhi disappeared in the fourth quarter of all of these games but one. That happened. Paul George's shot almost blinded one of the small children watching from afar. That happened. Doc Rivers out here saying motivational speeches are for the birds. Well, I don't know who you're going to motivate. Maybe someone on the golf course because you got some extra time this fall. All that happened, Wilds. And
Nick, you know
this
what else
is something
happened?
Yeah, tell me, Brandon. Tell me.
You're just gonna let Chris off the hook for trying to hedge his bet? How he tried to change his picks? Or are you just gonna let him off?
I didn't hedge my bet. I didn't hedge my bet.
Brandon,
I was
go,
just
Wilds.
being honest.
Wilds, go.
I had him winning last night.
Look, Jamal Murray after the game was like, no one believed in us. Shaq didn't believe in us.
Yeah.
Zach Lowe got a drive-by shot from poor Jamal Murray. But it got worse. Look at this list of people that picked the Clippers. Draymond, KD, Jamal, Crawford, Matt Barnes, Jalen Wilbon, T-Mac, and Paul Pierce. But there was one person on this panel, Jenna, just one, that had the courage, the bravery, the tenacity, and the integrity to utter four little words. I'm off the Clippers. And that's why Chris Broussard called this. He saw this from a mile away. He called it. Congratulations, Broussard. I knew the Clippers didn't have it when you called it yesterday, so bravo. Big win for you today.
I'm glad you of all the people on this panel recognized it, Wilds. I had the guts to come out and say it. But look, let me say this, because obviously Nick is taking major shots at Kawhi, and that's fair because Kawhi just didn't deliver. Here's what I'll say, though, and this goes into what Paul George said as far as this is not it, okay? It wasn't championship or bust. Of course, they wanted to win the championship. They thought they could win the championship. But this team is together. They're going to lose Montrezl Harrell, perhaps, and Marcus Morris. But they'll be back. They'll be humbled. They'll be motivated. I doubt you'll see as much load management, and they will be the better team for it. But here's what I say. Kawhi Leonard, he faded. Kawhi faded, right? We've seen who's had moments like this. Magic Johnson, tragic in 1984. Isaiah Thomas throwing the pass away to Larry Bird in 1987. LeBron James against Dallas in 2011. Larry Bird in his first finals, 8 points, 12 points in 3 games.
Those are the finals. That's in the finals.
But it's still.
It don't happen in the second round, bro.
Hold on, no. Kawhi Leonard did not.
This is why. No, Chris.
Guys did. He can bounce back. He can learn from it and bounce back. That's all I'm saying.
So when is the best time to win a championship?
No, of course. I know they wanted to win it this year. I agree with you there. But you guys are acting like they're old. Like they can't come back next year. Like they have no chance. This was it. It's not championship or bust. You don't think they're going to be humbled next year? You don't think they're going to be motivated? You don't think they're going to take the regular season seriously? Really?
It's harder. I'm just saying as a competitor.
I don't. Here's what I think. Here's what I think, Broussard. Broussard, here's what I think. I think they're stuck. I think, and there was someone who said at the beginning of the year, this is an odd-fitting roster. You got a bunch of specialists. You got a great defensive point guard who stinks on offense and a great offensive guard who stinks on defense. You got a great offensive big man who doesn't rebound for his position and can't play D in Montrezl Harrell. You got a guy in Zubac who is the most over-adulated 7-point-a-game player I've ever seen in my life. You have no rim protector in a conference where you got to get through Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic evidently as well. And you got a guy in Kawhi who, despite the fact that he's the most load-managed player we've ever seen, wore down entirely in the second half of these games, who is not built for every other night 40-plus minutes. That's what you've got. And by the way, they're not in it for the long haul. Kawhi and Paul George could have signed 4-year deals. They could have signed 3+1s. They signed 2+1s, meaning you only have 1 guaranteed year left with them because they wanted to give themselves an emergency hatch parachute. There's no other reason for it. And if this isn't enough to make at least one of them consider pulling that parachute, then nothing will be. But I hope they run it back. I hope they keep running it back, and in 2024, we can talk about on paper how great this fraudulent team is. Because they've never looked like a championship team, Jenna. Never.
But here's my question. How much responsibility falls on that guy right there? Doc Rivers was honest after the game, taking the blame for the Clippers' collapse. Broussard, how much of this do you put on Doc, and does he stick around, or is that it for him after, having this happen to him again, down 3-1, up 3-1, and then losing the series?
I don't think a lot of media are going to say this because Doc is great with the media, and Doc is a great guy. Everybody loves Doc. I like him a lot. But let's face it, he was honest, so I'm going to be honest. He deserves a ton of the blame. You mentioned now 3 times his teams have collapsed, having 3-1 leads. You look at this series, they made no major adjustments of any consequence. His players were fatigued. He even said it after the game that they had guys were asking out, well, who's that to blame on? The coach. Get your guys in shape. Everybody was in the bubble. Everybody was off 4 months. Everybody had the same circumstances. Get your guys in shape. They weren't motivated. They had no spirit. They had no chemistry. They didn't execute properly. That is all on the coach. Doc, I said it in the first round. He was outcoached by Rick Carlisle, and he was outcoached by Mike Malone. This is a lot on Doc Rivers. And I'm not saying you definitively fire him, but they have got to look closely at this situation because the successor could be sitting right there on your bench in Tyronn Lue, and obviously other teams want him. So they got to figure this out because Doc is underachieved. He underachieved with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan. I know they had a few injuries in the playoffs, but still, and he underachieved this year. When I got better guys than you got and you beat me, it's on me as the coach.
Listen, I would want Chris Broussard, if something were to happen to me, I'd be great with Chris Broussard raising my kids. I want Chris Broussard to give me broadcasting advice. There's a lot of things I love and respect about Chris Broussard. I don't want him picking my NBA Finals, evidently. I feel the same way about Doc Rivers. I love him as a man. I want Doc Rivers to be a leader, to give motivational speeches, to help take a team from the brink, from the depths of a horrible racist owner and bring them through it to the other side. I don't want Doc Rivers to coach a team that has championship aspirations, unless Kevin Garnett's coming with him, unless one of the greatest leaders in NBA history is alongside him. Because without Kevin Garnett, all we've seen Doc Rivers teams do is underachieve in the biggest spots, blow 3-1 or 3-2 leads, which he's now done 6 times, 3-3-1, 3 times 3-2, and at the end of the year, all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we'll get them next year. Running out of next year's. Luckily, there's a lot of gorgeous golf courses in Los Angeles, and I'll have some more time on them coming up, Jenna.
Can I be the Doc defender? This 3-1 lead thing, okay. First of all, the Magic Pistons series was an 8-1 series. They weren't supposed to win that. And it's like the way that it played out, I get it. But like that was an 8-1. So I'm going to give him a pass on that. But here's another take on Doc's performance over this bubble. Maybe he knew all along this team doesn't have it. This team doesn't have. What? I've seen a championship team. I've coached a championship team. This team doesn't have it. And I'm not going to go out there and lie to you. We've seen it. And when they did the little mics up, he's like, we're emotionally weak. We need to stay in the game. I don't know if it's fair, Broussard, to tell professional athletes to come in shape. Like, what is Doc got to be like Joe Judge and the Giants and telling people to run laps? That's not Doc Rivers' job. Like, I think he looks.
Is it his job to not blow 19 point second half leads? Wilds, is it his job to not blow 19 point second half leads?
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.